Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Jim Masters Show live entertainment lifestyle talk show series. How's everybody doing today? It's nice to see all those smiley faces. This is show number 2, actually. We had comedian Noel Kessler with us earlier, just about an hour and a half ago. For those of you that follow us live, we do our shows live. This is the entertainment lifestyle talk show series where we are truly bringing back that lost art of conversation. That's right, conversation back and forth. And we always have great guests that come in and grace our presence from Broadway and Hollywood, television, film, music, stage, culinary arts, comedy, sports, inspiration, and so much more from all around the world. And we have a blast with them and with you. Thank you so much for joining us here live, or if you are watching this eventually 6 months, 2 years from now, thank you for watching this episode as well. We would love it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the channel you're watching right now. That's Jim Masters TV right here on YouTube. And don't forget to click that notification bell as well, because that way there you can keep abreast of all the exciting episodes and everything we have and everything we do here, because we do so many episodes. Like today, we've done 2 episodes. Yesterday, we did 2. We did 2 on Monday. So you'll be abreast of all of that. And we appreciate it. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific is our regularly scheduled time, but sometimes we do extra episodes, bonus episodes. So subscribe to that YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Click that notification bell and join all of the fun we have here. Entertainment, lifestyle segments we do as well, and lifestyle episodes, variety, and talk. Again, sort of like the old school talk shows and entertainment variety shows that you may remember, with a modern twist and a modern vibe, with lots of our famous JMS Lovity. That's right. That's what the audience calls this. They said this is the Lovity Squad, Lovity Hall. I'm Mr. Lovity. And our guests are part of the Lovity family, and we love that. So how's everybody doing? Let's dive right in. Let's talk to some of our fantastic viewers here, and then we will welcome our very special guest live and direct from Tinseltown. Yes, I'm talking about Jim Colucci. He is joining us here live and direct from Los Angeles and Hollywood. And boy, are we going to celebrate tonight Norman Lear and also the iconic television series All in the Family, starring Carol O'Connor and Gene Stapleton, Rob Reiner, of course, Sally Struthers, Betty Garrett, and so many others. And of course, the spinoff to so many iconic shows like The Jeffersons and Maude and Good Times. Really, really incredible, iconic character, the wonderful Norman Lear, responsible for that, and so much more. One Day at a Time. I mean, so many epic presentations, productions, sitcoms, and so much more with his wit, wisdom, and charm. And at the time of this broadcast, he's like 99 and just absolutely amazing. But there's an amazing book that's out, which is All in the Family, the show that changed television, by Norman Lear. And the foreword is by Jimmy Kimmel. And this is told by our very special guest, Jim Colucci, who's again going to join us in just a second, live from LA. Matter of fact, he's on a tour, going on a tour with Norman Lear as well, to some select cities to talk about the book and the series and so much more. But Jim has also delved into other iconic television shows and series as well, like The Golden Girls, of course, you guys love so much, and Will and Grace. And again, this tied to The Golden Girls as well. Just he's a prolific entertainment writer, TV guide, The Advocate, and so much more. We'll talk about that in just a second. But let's check in with our viewers. I see lots of comments coming in here from folks like Linda Odell watching in Florida. Good evening, Mr. Levity. Good evening, Lovities. I told Jim, you know, this is like double Lovity. You got 2 Jims coming at you tonight. I told Jim about the whole Lovity thing here on JMS Live. He says, I love it. It's great. Round 2 for the Lovity shows today. Absolutely. Good to see you in Florida. Linda Mona is in Louisiana, USA. She says, hi, Jim, and welcome, Jim. That's basically it. Hi, Jim, and welcome, Jim, to Lovity Hall. Hi, Jim, and welcome, Jim Colucci, to Lovity Hall. Hello, Lovities. Hope all had a great Wednesday. We sure are. Good to see you, Mona. Mary Bishop's in Florida, and she says, hello, Jim and Lovities. Good to see you there in Pine Island, Florida. Nice to see you. In Kansas, USA, Sherry Larson's here and says, good evening or morning or afternoon, no matter what time of day it is, because we have an international audience. Good to see you, Sherry, located there in Kansas. And everybody that's commenting, look at all these great comments that are coming in here. We welcome everybody. Kathy Short is here from Cleveland, Ohio. She says, hello, Jim and Lovity. It's nice to see everyone here tonight. Absolutely. All the lovelies are literally reporting for duty. And you're in for a great episode tonight. Look at all these great comments. Thanks so much. Don't forget to also comment on our YouTube channel. Give this episode a thumbs up, like, and leave a comment on the actual channel. We love that. That helps us big time. Jed Barry in Allentown, Pennsylvania says, Jim, are we all live again? Awesome. Yes, we are. Yes, I had about an hour and a half between this show and the other show, and then some other television and radio work I had to do. About an hour and a half to eat a quick dinner and come back at you live. That's what we call double lovity around here. Welcome, Jim, to the Lovity Squad show. And Merlin in Ontario, Canada says, good evening, Jim, and all lovities. Absolutely. We love that. And welcome, Jim. That's Jim Colucci, of course, and everybody that's here. We thank you guys so much. And keep those comments coming. We'll touch base and check in with you guys as we go along here on the show. But let me tell you a little bit about Jim. Again, he's an extraordinary writer, freelance entertainment writer whose work has appeared in such publications as TV Guide, Inside TV, Quick and Simple, In Touch, The Advocate, Next, CBS Watch Magazine, where he served as a deputy editor. Since 2008, he has covered television and other entertainment media in his popular blog, Must Hear TV. He's appeared as a TV expert historian on such shows as CNN's History of the Sitcom. Of course, I've seen all of these and I'm familiar as a television guy myself, and I love this. And Reels, the wonderful Reels channel, the continuing series Behind Closed Doors, which is another fantastic series. For over 10 years, he also delivered a weekly on-air version of Must Hear TV as a correspondent for the Frank DeCaro Show, of course, on Sirius XM Radio. And in the fall of 2004, Time Incorporated released Jim's official unauthorized companion book to one of NBC's biggest comedy hits, titled Will and Grace, Fabulously Uncensored. His second TV book, The Q Guide to the Golden Girls, was released by Allison Books in September 2006. Third book, Golden Girls Forever, released in 2016 by Harper Design, and became a New York Times bestseller. And just this month, that's right, Rizzoli Universe released All in the Family, the show that changed television, featuring the remembrances of TV legend Norman Lear, plus dozens of All in the Family stars, writers, producers, directors, crew, and guest stars, and an introduction by Jimmy Kimmel himself. In television, Jim also co-created an original animated pilot for the Disney Channel and contributed comic material for 4 annual Oscar-themed comedy specials airing on Comedy Central. That's right. Hosted by Frank DeCaro, of course, of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, was his husband. In 2010, Jim and Frank's comedic music video, Frederick Ford, Betty White Lines, went viral and was featured on The Today Show and CNN's Showbiz Tonight. He's a big fan of classic TV as well. Some of the folks he's had an opportunity to chat with over the years: Felicia Rashad, Cloris Leachman, Jane Meadows, Arthur Rankin. Oh, yes, Arthur Rankin, Rankin and Bass Productions, all the Christmas shows. Chuck Barris, James Lipton, of course, the Actors Studio, Tyne Daly, Jeffrey Tambor, Bernie Coppell, from The Love Boat, and so much more. Really, really cool. He's getting a chance to chat with some of those folks that, he knows and loves and admires and respects as well. And we are sort of kindred spirits in that way, coming from television backgrounds. Won't you join me in welcoming Jim live and direct again from Tinseltown, from Los Angeles, to the Jim Masters Show Live. Jim, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hello to you and to everyone who's currently tailgating on the grounds of Lovity Hall.
That's
Hello
right.
to everybody. It's nice to be here.
That's it. I like that. Tailgating on the grounds of Lovity Hall. I'm going to have to remember that. That is cool. Congratulations on all of this. You're paying homage to these iconic television icons, these series that we know and love so well. How did you first get started in it? At first in writing, and then how did the focus become entertainment and specifically this real thirst and love for television?
It's part by design, but a large part by accident. It's just funny because I was always obsessed with sitcoms and with television. And of course, not many people, even back when I was going to high school and college, thought that could be much of a career in New Jersey. We weren't in Hollywood, and people didn't really see how that could be anything. In fact, I remember my mother telling me, like, turn off the television and, apply to more colleges. And they wanted me to be an engineer. And I remember thinking, television is what I want to do. I don't want to do the
Yeah.
engineering thing. But I did. I studied not anything having to do with television. I did study computer science and marketing. But getting at once, I think that you have to in life be open to opportunity and also be ready. They always say be ready when opportunity knocks. And so when I did have, just by dumb luck, the opportunity from a TV Guide editor when I was in my
Yeah.
late 20s to go to an open casting call in New Jersey for The Sopranos and write about it. And they wanted to pick somebody. They originally were going to ask my husband, Frank DeCaro, to go, but he had already written about The Sopranos for TV Guide and they knew him. And they wanted someone who could go kind of undercover. And so I got this
Yeah.
assignment out of thin air. I went and covered it. And then I pitched them more stories because I just wanted to keep going. It was fun. It was more fun than my day job. And you just kind of roll with it. Eventually, you build more and more of a portfolio and you can have more clips and gets you bigger assignments and you get to pitch your own book
Yeah.
eventually and, have some credibility in the space. So it really is just being ready when something you want to do comes along and not second guessing whether you're qualified to do it. Just do it.
Just do it. Just get out there and do it. Absolutely. Beautifully said. What would you say is one of those first opportunities for you where, being a part of that particular project was very pivotal in your career and being noticed and people just really saying, we like what he does. We like his vibe. We like what he has to say. And then all of a sudden you're becoming elevated in terms of notoriety and opportunities and productions and projects and writing opportunities.
Well, one good gig tends to beget another, and each of those brings you to a new level of credibility, really, in the industry. Because one thing about entertainment, as we all know, we all have our opinions about entertainment, and with the internet, we all have an outlet to voice them. And
Yes.
the part of that that's great is that we do get to connect with kindred spirits about people who love the shows we love, and we have an outlet for talking. The downside, though, is that any individual voice can kind of get lost because there are so
Yeah.
many places where there are opinions being said that people who have studied as journalists can sometimes not have as big a voice as someone else, and sometimes that's great. The someone else who has a natural affinity for it can really get their voice out there. But it just makes it tough for as a journalist to try to have the credibility to pitch a book or pitch a project because you have to have stood out from the crowd. And so that's why anytime you get a really good gig, it brings you up to that next step. And so I would say TV Guide was one. Getting to write the book about Will and Grace, which was the official companion book to the show, that was another. Broadcasting on Sirius for 10 years weekly, of course, gets you a name and credibility out there. So it all just builds on itself.
Tell us about the Will and Grace book. How did that happen? That's a great one.
That was wonderful luck. Now, I had been writing for TV Guide for a while, and a friend told me about her sister-in-law's friend, blah, 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 and, who was working as an agent with NBC. And NBC at the time was looking for someone to write a book about the Today Show. And I am absolutely the wrong person to do that because not only I could write about news, I don't think it would be, beyond anybody, but I'm not the right person. And there are better news writers out there and more trained news writers, I'm sure, but also practically have never seen the Today Show. So but again, when opportunity presents itself, this is the chance to write a book about a TV show. I was going to go for it. So I did audition with sending in clips and letting them know what my vision for the book would be. And I didn't get it. However, at the same time, that agent said, by the way, they're also looking for someone to write a book about Will and Grace. And that is like, oh my God, the show that I was obsessed with as a gay man myself. And I wanted to crawl up and live inside that show. So the opportunity to then get to go on set and observe them for weeks at a time and do all those interviews one-on-one with all of those people was like, the Make-A-Wish camp. I couldn't believe that was a job that would pay. And again, once that comes out and you you have the credibility of having been selected to do that, then when you go and look for your next project, it's that much easier.
Absolutely. So you would love to have lived in that environment in that house, huh?
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
I still have dreams that I'm like, I wander in and there the four of them are being so quippy and funny, and you get to hang out with them and explore every nook and cranny of that apartment. That's one of my favorite settings of anything in
Yeah.
life.
I think a lot of kids probably always wanted to live in the Brady Bunch house too. That would have been cool. I think that
That
was something that, yeah, the Brady
that was
Bunch
always
house,
my example.
the
That was
Brady
always my
Bunch
example
house.
when they asked for the Will and Grace book, what kind of book do you want to are you planning? I really said, ever since I was a kid, I dreamt I was the fourth Brady boy, and that there was an
Right.
extra bunk in that room, in that bedroom, and that I could walk around and then pick up knickknacks and look in drawers, and it was always like you wanted to go through the TV and join them. And that was the
Right.
example I always used. And so I tried to evoke that feeling for every other book I've done, which is one of the reasons I focus even so much on physical sets and photos and
Yeah,
little point arrows pointing to this prop came from here, and here's the story behind that one, because we all
exactly.
have this fantasy that of this the happiness that emanates from some of these spaces, that they just become such visual settings in our minds, and every nook and cranny
Yes.
has a story, and it's usually a funny one because they're funny shows.
Absolutely. There was a drama that goes back a little bit earlier that was an Aaron Spelling drama. I think he was quoted, if I recall correctly, is of all the shows that he was involved in, it was the one he was most proud of, and that was Family with Sada Thompson, James Broderick, Christy McNichol, Quinn Cummings, Meredith Baxter Burney, and Gary Frank, and that beautiful house there in Pasadena. And when I was on a television shoot in LA, I had to go to where the Brady Bunch house was. And matter of fact, HGTV, and I don't know if you know Lauren Rook from HGTV, but they were working on the renovation of it, the very Brady renovation with the Brady kids and the Property Brothers when HGTV bought it. And what they did was incredible. And then I had to drive up to Pasadena in between the downtime to see the house that was used in Family, which is that real house they used the exterior shots for. And it was just like, wow, another beautiful house and setting and so comfortable. And, it's really amazing how, and I hope that doesn't go away. That's distinctly television, where we were so enamored with theme songs to TV shows and the settings, the homes, the apartments, the locations, the characters, the people. And, I hope that never goes away because I know a lot now is very fast and direct and raw, and they don't even really spend time on a theme song. It's just bang and it's on, or the credits are just whoosh over. You don't get that feeling that you used to get when you'd hear the music, you'd see the opening shots, you'd hum to the theme at the end that have, sweeping shots of the house or whatever, the neighborhood. Um, to me, maybe because of being creative like you are too, all of that means a lot to me as much as the actual content of the show, the dialogue, the interaction is just the whole setting and the feeling and the buildup that's going to happen when I Dream a Genie comes on, or any of these recognizable shows. And I just hope that that doesn't necessarily completely fade out. I hate when they squeeze credits and they start the next show, but I want to hear the theme and see the credits. Kind of
It's
old school with that.
commercial forces at work. The
We know,
run
yeah.
times of shows keep getting shorter and shorter so that they can air more commercials, but that cuts into storytelling time. And when they can't deal with less storytelling time, they don't have a theme song. Something has to go. And it does take away from some of the things we've always enjoyed. And it's interesting because I do a lot of events around the Golden Girls, and I'm going to be on the Golden Girls cruise again this January. And one of the most popular group events where people really bond over the show, just that singing the theme song together. When
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
episode airs, if everybody's singing it together, and that was not a brand new song. Thank You for Being a Friend was not a brand new song for that show. It had been a song by Andrew Gold years earlier, but there's something about that rendition of it as sung by Cynthia Fee, and that we all know every little trill she does and adds to that melody. But there's something so that brings us such warmth and commonality to it. It's such a communal experience to hear it
Right.
together, and it's a shame when shows, even some great shows that are on today, don't have that one particular element anymore.
Right. It's very, very important. You mentioned the Golden Girls. Tell us about this. Congratulations, too. And
Thank you.
how ironic. Now, are you wearing a Golden Girls shirt or something? Because the color of your shirt is matching the coloration.
I'm actually wearing my new All in the Family shirt, but it certainly is in
Oh,
a
that's
Golden
cool.
Girls friendly pastel
I was
green.
going to say it is. Tell us about this work of art, my friend. And congratulations, of course, on
Well,
this.
the way that I happened to be ready when the Will and Grace people came knocking was that I had always wanted to write a TV book about a show I loved, and the show I
Yeah.
loved most was the Golden Girls. But I would always,
Yes.
growing up, I'm old, so before the internet, I was looking for books about television, and a lot of books about television would be kind of hastily written or wouldn't be in a lot of detail, and I'd often be disappointed. And so I always said, I hope someday I get the opportunity to write about a show that I love, but I'll do it in the kind of detail that I want to read as a reader.
Right.
Again, where you feel like you can crawl around the sets and look around. Um, and so that's what I had already written a proposal to write about the Golden Girls that way when
Mhm.
NBC had this Will and Grace gig. And so I did the Will and Grace book first, which again was a dream. But then I was
Yeah.
able to go out and use that credibility from Will and Grace to then sell the same approach to the Golden Girls. And I'm very fortunate that the timing worked out as it did, because when I was looking to sell this Golden Girls book, first it was 2002, then I did Will and Grace in 2003 and 4. By the time I put out a Golden Girls book, it was 2006. So I interviewed all of the ladies except for Estelle, who wasn't well enough, Estelle Getty,
Yeah.
but I talked to all the people in her life. But I spoke to the other three in their living rooms, and spoke to producers and directors and writers and guest stars in 2006. And so it was really a wonderful time because the three ladies were still alive and well and had great things to say about the show and great memories. And you do really, the part that I actually don't love the actual writing process, because it can be a lot of work, and yeah, it's like a puzzle. You have to
Yeah.
squeeze a lot of stuff on the page. But the fun part, and the part that you really pinch yourself, is when you're sitting in B. Arthur's living room with your bare feet up on her coffee table, and her bare feet are up on the coffee table, and you've just been talking for hours, and now you've hung out to split a bottle of wine with her. And
Now, when
that's
you
when you
were
pinch yourself
with
like,
her,
how did this happen?
yeah, how did this happen? Were you seeing her, in the role of the Golden Girls? Were you also seeing elements of Maude too when you were chatting with her?
Well, definitely. You can't
Yeah.
separate the physicality of B from either of those roles. They both were predicated on her being tall and having a deep voice and being imposing. The irony is that B, although was tall and had a deep voice and could make herself imposing, was really a vulnerable mushball. She had
Yes.
this facade of
I
being
heard.
tough, but she was not
Right.
at all tough in real life. She could
Right.
act tough, but she and her inner heart was not. So
Yeah.
when the more I got to know B, the less I saw Dorothy and saw Maud, because the more I got to see how B was so tender on the inside,
Right.
which Dorothy had her moments where she showed her vulnerability, and I guess Maud did too. But the more I saw B, the less I saw those other characters.
So what was that like where you're chatting with her? And again, that was in preparation for the book, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So it took a while to convince B to sit down with me, because she felt she had talked about the Golden Girls enough, which I don't blame her. That's a common thing you hear as an author if you're writing about a show. You're not the first person ever writing about it, even if you're the first book. They certainly did a lot of magazine interviews in the day of the show. So B took a little convincing, but I did agree that I would stay and have a drink with her afterward, and that I think calmed her nerves. And I think I let her know that I was going to be a friendly voice, and really, it really just I think that she is a vulnerable person, and I had to kind of show her in multiple phone calls that I was going to be an ally and be gentle with her, and then drink with her, and all of that happened, and it was so incredible. Again, when you're rummaging through B. Arthur's kitchen drawers looking for a corkscrew so you can split a bottle of wine, and then you sit down and you put your feet on the table and you're just talking about whatever, that's when you think, oh my God, first of all, how many people would kill to be able to do this, to appreciate it so much. But
Because
then you just think, okay,
she wasn't somebody who would just normally do that. So she felt comfortable with you to welcome you into her world, which was fantastic.
Well, most celebrities, I mean, let's face it, we're not going to get the chance to sit around and drink wine with them just because they'd be deluged by fans who want to do it. But B was
Yeah.
particularly guarded, yes. So I think it would be even less likely. But that's when your mind your whole life flashes before your eyes when you're sitting there thinking, okay, what precisely led me to get here? How did this happen? Okay, you go through childhood, college, education, and B Arthur's living room. Okay, life is fun sometimes. Has great
Life
surprises
is.
sometimes.
I did have something similar happen, and it was with Florence Henderson, who was also somebody that
Ah,
was
what a
a
lovely
dream to
woman.
chat with. Florence and Carol Burnett, of course. Uh, Real deal, warm, authentic, no airs about them. And I was at a gala event, actually in Connecticut, and they were putting everybody together for this photo. And she sat on my lap. She was in a white pantsuit, and she sat on my lap, and I'm holding her up, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just transported to 10 years old. I'm holding up Mrs. Brady. And it was really incredible. And when she got up, she turned around and she looked at me. We were chatting. I did an interview. It was a whole evening, but it was one of those scenarios where when she got up, I said, I don't think I'm ever going to wash these pants again, Florence. And she turned around. She says, I bet you won't, Jim. She had this funny, she was Carol Brady, but she had a saucy side, and she was just,
Oh yeah.
and she wrote to every fan, she said that night too, that ever wrote to her. She would
You
write
know,
back.
she was
Beautiful.
incredible because a lot of times they say don't meet your idols because they'll disappoint you, and particularly if they're
Right.
associated with a TV character who's too good to be true, it's very
Yeah.
hard to be that character. But in her case, she exceeded expectations because not only did she have the exact warmth and heart of Carol Brady, but then she also could be bawdy and funny and playful,
Yeah.
and so it was Carol Brady plus so much more. And I got to see the body playful side in several interactions at parties and stuff. But I have to tell you, I had a moment with her that was just what I needed at that moment. It's just one
Mm.
of those things that makes you believe in fate because I was
Yes.
assigned to write a piece for CBS Watch magazine about the Brady Bunch,
Yep.
and as luck would have it, the week before my piece was due, when was going to be speaking to Florence and a few of the kids and a few of them, quite a few of the Brady's, my mother was in the hospital not doing well at all.
Mm.
And it was really tough to keep working and even find a space within the hospital to go do an interview where you have to record a video and all that. But when I spoke to Florence, it ended up being just about a week after my mother passed away. And it was the first work I was going to be doing since. And what a weird moment to be talking to America's mom after losing my own. And you think this is either a really good sign or a really bad sign. And
Yes.
I usually don't want to dump all my personal baggage on anybody I'm interviewing. It's not necessarily professional.
Right.
But at the very end of the talk, we about the Brady Bunch, we got all the work stuff out of the way. I did say to her, I kind of think this is the universe putting me in your presence today because I just lost my mom. And she spent the next few minutes consoling me. And it was just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's what you want from
Yes.
America's mom when you lose your own
Yes.
mom. She was so lovely.
What had happened with me, and this is very sort of uncanny, Jim, and it's got to be a Jim thing, maybe. When I was at this gala event, the original Masters of Ceremonies were supposed to be it was a charity event too, and dinner and the whole thing, and a big show. I think Gladys Knight and the Pips were there, or Kenny Loggins. It was a really cool thing that happens every year, and not Regis, Kathy Lee Gifford and Frank Gifford were the original MCs for this event in Stamford, Connecticut. And Frank had passed, and I'd met both through the event multiple times, wonderful people, but Frank passed. So the family who the charity was for um, were friends with Florence for years. So she pitched in to be the MC. So I was brought into, when I first arrived, you're in the area where there's champagne and appetizers and all kinds of things going on. People hello and networking and greeting each other and celebrating the cause. I was brought into this VIP area, and there was a mob of people, and they were all around Florence Henderson. And she had that white pantsuit on, and there was sort of like a spotlight. She was like glowing. It was angelic. And this is what's uncanny. And like, I totally agree with what you said as far as with your mother passing and Florence sort of quietly sweeping in. It was a similar situation in terms of how I felt, because as strange as this sounds, I'm brought into this room. The room is sort of dark. There's, 100 plus people all around her. Somehow she looks through this crowd of people, sees me brought in to the VIP room, and like Moses parts the sea. We hadn't met yet, parts the sea of all of these people, and comes bullet towards me and says to the photographer, I want a picture with him. I want to talk. And it was the rest of the night. We were constantly talking and laughing. It's as if we had known each other for 1,000 years. She was always somebody that I always admired, respected, and would love in our crazy careers to have met, and hoped that she would live up to what, the childhood image is. And she did, and it exceeded it. And all the rest of the night, an elevator were open. I'm there or she's there. I mean, it was absolutely uncanny. And then just the sitting on the lap and the photos and all this other. But what was really amazing was when the night was evening and the ending and the musical concert ended and the gala raffle had, all these things ended. And I'm by the door talking to some colleagues. The elevator opens. She was with her daughters. And she comes beelining towards me again with all these other people around, photographers. And she says, Jim, I just want to let you know it was such an honor and a pleasure to meet you. And I said, an honor and pleasure to meet me. An honor and pleasure to meet you. And I just want to thank you for all the joy and the love and the comedy and just your beautiful presence that millions of people have really been touched by. And she paused, and then she sort of like kiss on the cheek type thing. And we wished each other like happy Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving was approaching. And then she exited the doors into fog. And like, was it maybe 2 weeks later, she had been in Hollywood rooting on Maureen McCormick for Dancing with the Stars. And Thanksgiving came, and my cell phone and Facebook and everything blew up with all these people sending condolences to me. And I said, did somebody in the family die on Thanksgiving? What, it was like nervous. What's going on? And it was everybody passing condolence to me because Florence Henderson had just passed only a couple of weeks after we had met. And a number of people had said, there's just something about you that you've always really clung towards and really admired. And that, kind of like with you, that was supposed to happen before she passed. You were supposed to meet. That was supposed to happen for her and for you. And
Yeah.
multiple people have said that. And, I really think stuff like that is true. It's incredible. It's uncanny and sounds almost, like a Hollywood movie, but there's something
It does,
to
but
that,
it
isn't
happens
there?
more than once. Not to go into the story, but I had the same thing with Gavin MacLeod after my mother passed. It's just there are moments that are meant to happen in a certain way, and I hope Florence gets YouTube wherever she is now, so that she can see how much she affected both our lives directly, and of course, I know
Yes.
she knew how much she affected everybody's lives with the Brady Bunch.
She's definitely a lovety. Yes.
Yes.
And Carol Burnett as well.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, such treasures. We still are lucky enough to live in an era where there are so many treasures with us.
yes, absolutely. So in addition to so for folks that are now inquiring about the Golden Girls book, tell us about this, and what it's about, because they might want to, research it and pick it up.
It is everything I always wanted to know about the Golden Girls and more. As I said, I started being obsessed with the show from the moment it started in 1985, which was before the internet era. And the only place you could get information about a TV show was in TV Guide, or I would obsessively read the local TV Guide that came with our local Sunday paper. And you'd get a paragraph at a time, or you'd see them on a talk show very briefly. But I always wanted to know, what is that exclamation point carved in the front door? Is that literally from eagle-eye viewers watching? And why does it seem like the bedrooms don't make sense when they go off the hallway? It seems like Rose's bedroom would be in the same place as the lanai, and where's that garage? But also, what inspired the storylines that inspire us? What made the characters who they are? What did the actresses bring to the roles? So I was lucky enough to get all that access, and you don't always, as an author, sometimes you have to do what they call a write around, which is you use old interviews with the stars and quote them. But it just was fate, because each and every one of those people, other than Estella, who I said wasn't well, although her family really wanted me, and her caretaker really wanted me to be able to talk with her, it just didn't work out by the time I was ready to do a book. But each and every one of those other people made themselves available to me and opened up their attic, where they had kept photos that they took on the set that no one had ever seen before, or they had paperwork from the show, or a wrap party invitation. And all of that stuff was the stuff that I had never seen before. You could get a bare bones of an episode guide on the internet and see what happened in an episode. And now, of course, you can stream episodes and own the DVD box set. But what are those backstories that happened during production that affected what you see on screen? And that's what I always wanted to bring into a book. And I was so thrilled. I mean, I spent 10 full years compiling all that stuff, meeting all those people, gathering materials, gathering photos, because I started the interview in early 2006, and I published the book in April of 2016. So 10 full years.
That is absolutely incredible.
Well spent. 10 years well spent, because it was fun.
10 years well spent, and you still have your hair on your head and everything, which is cool.
Well, because those were not the difficult people to deal with. Other people in life could make you pull out your hair, but not them.
I'm sure there's another book you could write. Absolutely. There's also this.
Oh, yeah.
This too. Tell us about this.
The Q Guide to the Golden Girls was actually the first book I put out in 2006, because what happened was, after doing all of those interviews, I certainly wanted to get a book out about the Golden Girls, but we live and still live in an ageist and misogynist world.
Yeah.
And it not always outwardly, but there's subtly misogyny and ageism. There are subtle presences in a lot of fields, including publishing. Publishers and editors at publishing companies love to, first of all, show how smart they are by denigrating television and saying, I didn't watch television. So they're proud of how little they know about television, but they also, and I would even say more, the money counters at the bean counters at the publishing companies would do this. They would say, if we're going to publish a show about TV, why would it be an old one about 4 old ladies? Because these were people who didn't have their finger on the pulse of pop culture. They didn't realize that the Golden Girls is such an anomaly, because it's a show that keeps getting more and more popular with every passing year, rather than less and less, which is the normal pattern. Normally, shows peak and they have their fans, and those fans grow up, and then maybe they don't pass it on to the next generation, or it's aired in repeats, and that show can become forgotten. That did not happen with the Golden Girls. It's the opposite. New generations who weren't even alive when the show was on are huge fans. And so it took a while to convince a publisher that a book about the Golden Girls was a good idea at all. And while I was looking to do that for this larger book that became Golden Girls Forever, I met an LGBT publisher called Allison Books, and they were inaugurating a new guidebook series about pop culture and other things. And they said this would be a great guidebook for us to the series, but because their audience is supposedly pure LGBT, although of course lots of people read the book, we focused on episodes of the show that had a specific reason to appeal to the LGBT community, whether they had themes that there was a gay relative visiting or a gay friend, or whether it was a campy guest star, something that the gay fan, particularly the gay, lesbian, trans, bisexual, all of that community would find appealing. So I put that out in 2006 to really kind of plant a flag in the Golden Girls territory. But I knew that someday, and it turned out to be 2016, 10 full years later, that I would get to do Golden Girls Forever, which is for everyone and much more broadly focused.
Terrific. That's fantastic. And now, of course, and again, congratulations on this. You and I were chatting about this before we went live. This book here, tell us about this. And again, the show that really changed television in so many ways. This is a labor of love to be involved in this. Tell us about this and Norman Lear and chatting with Norman and knowing him. Incredible.
It is again one of those examples of how things happen the way they're meant to happen, because when you write books about TV, one thing that happens, and it's kind of fun, is that your friends now suggest what your next project should be.
Right.
So I've had people say, do this show, do that show, do this show. And there are reasons why, or why not I would tackle a particular show as a book. Sometimes there's been a definitive book already. Sometimes the cast is unfortunately has passed away and there's no one to interview. There's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't or would be a good book. With All in the Family, so people, quite a few people said to me, why don't you write about All in the Family? And my answer was, well, Carol and Jean have both passed away. I don't know who would want to talk about it. It is an older show, so that just means that publishers will be scared that it's too old. I kind of went down the path of that a lot of publishers would go down about saying, no, that's not a good idea for a book. And I talked myself out of it. And then here it happens that as the 50th anniversary of All in the Family was approaching, Norman Lear himself wanted to do a book about All in the Family. And through the publisher, we connected, and I was offered the opportunity to work with Norman and interview him and Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers and other cast and guest stars and crew, and kind of do the same approach where you really get to a granular look at the episodes. And I was already working on another book that I was able to put on the back burner for a bit, because when someone says, do you want to work with Norman Lear, who is a then 98, now 99-year-old comedy legend, the answer should always be yes. And
Yes.
so I was so glad that I was able to kind of switch gears for a bit and collaborate with Norman Lear. Who would ever think that you could use the word collaborate with Norman Lear? But
With Norman
at least
Lear.
on this book, I did. And we talked for hours about his favorite episodes and about favorite moments and the way things happened behind the scenes, the way things were structured, what he thought of working with Carol and Jean and Rob and Sally and guest stars. It was, again, if you're a TV geek, it was like going to fantasy camp, getting, what ended up to be 8 or 9 hours on Zoom and in person with Norman, just grilling him about all things All in the Family. It's a dream. And that's all reflected in this book.
What are some things you learned, in this process about Norman and also about this iconic, beloved series?
I think that more than learning any particular fact, and there were definitely facts I learned, but they might be minor, I'd have to contextualize them for you. But I think the bigger sense I got rather than learning was appreciation for the show, because I watched the show in reruns, and in reruns, and it depends upon when I was watching. If it was later days, like the 90s and 2000s and 20 and the teens, sometimes I would think, oh, first of all, I would probably falsely think, oh, look how far we've come since that moment when that was an issue. And I think recent years have proven that we are not over a lot of the issues that All in the Family raised. And I thought, even though I naively thought we were, but in watching the show in later years, I didn't put myself back in the mindset of what it must have been like in 1971 to watch that episode, and how groundbreaking and revolutionary it was to turn on CBS, the Tiffany network of all places, the most staid and conservative and now oldest skewing network, and get something that was anarchy compared to what had been on television before. That in 1971, we were almost as polarized, I would say, as we are now. I know young people are probably put off by how polarized we are as a country now, but they don't realize that in 1971, it was still left versus right. There was the generation gap of old versus young. The big dividing issue was the Vietnam War. There were people for it and people against it. And so here was this show that came out, and where 60s sitcoms, and I love a lot of 60s sitcoms, so I'm not putting them down, but where 60s sitcoms would talk, as Norman said, about the big issue being, oh, no, honey, I'm in the roast and your boss is coming over for dinner. That would be the big problem. Here comes All in the Family in 1971. It airs with a disclaimer saying that the language and the issues that they bring up are not necessarily those of CBS. CBS had to even distance itself from the show. It was so afraid. And here's this show that uses epithets that we've heard on the street, and we know that people in real life use for better or worse. It brings up issues that are dividing us and tearing families apart. And it revolutionizes what we think of as a TV comedy and changed TV forevermore. And again, I knew that I had heard some of those words before in association with All in the Family, groundbreaking, revolutionary, but it was really when I started contextualizing it and studying the early 70s, and then talking with Norman about, my God, were you worried? Were you scared? How did you have the nerve to put on that episode? And hearing his answers, that really made me have an even deeper appreciation for what TV owes to that show.
And you're so correct. I mean, it's extraordinary when you think about the issues and the topics and everything that was discussed and tackled, which hadn't been really other than, yeah, honey, I burned the roast type of thing. And at first, the shock value was significant for people, right? They were like, weren't sure how to take it. I mean, people fell in love with it, but at first, because it was so new and it was so topical and relevant and sort of a mirror in a way on society, people at first, there was a little bit of a shock value going from, the 60s material and sitcoms to this, right?
There was, and as I said, CBS, first of all, was so worried they aired a disclaimer. But some of the magic of All in the Family was that it appealed to both the left and the right. And that's something that we look for today. I think that programmers would be thrilled if they found a show that bridged the divide between us, because right now we have this niche programming that confirms you're already what political viewpoints you already have. So if you're on the left, you can find shows that agree with you. If you're on the right, you can find shows that agree with you. But All in the Family managed to play to both halves of the audience. And part of it was because certainly there were many people who watched it and realized that it was a satire of Archie Bunker's views, and that this was a progressive show showing you the ignorance of someone like Archie Bunker. But there were also people who watched the show and thought Archie was the hero of the piece, not the fool. And they agreed with him and said, he's saying the things we always wanted to say. And we know that people say in real life, but TV doesn't show us. So it was, the reaction to the show was not necessarily what Mickey Rooney famously told Norman Lear when Mickey was being considered for Archie Bunker. Norman, they're going to shoot you in the streets. And I understand that people predicted that that was going to be the reaction. It wasn't necessarily. There were people, I'm sure, who were put off by it being crass or crude or vulgar. And there were people who were on the left who were afraid that the show legitimized Archie and made him likable, which it did to some extent. So there were varying opinions about the show. But as time went on, and I think the quality of the show shone through, and the way the show was able to bring topics into conversation that in the era of 3 networks became water cooler conversation for us all, I think the show converted so many of its early critics and really became beloved by everyone. And again, how do you do that today? I don't know that that could ever be done again.
Now, the foreword for this book, written by Jimmy Kimmel, huh? Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, Jimmy Kimmel, obviously a huge fan of Norman Lear's work. And so it was Jimmy's idea to put all the elements together to create those 2 broadcasts live in front of a studio audience that aired on ABC in 2019 and won Emmys. And so Jimmy became friends with Norman through that process and pitched Norman on doing it, and really was the 800-pound gorilla at ABC, who used all of the power he has at ABC, the well-earned power he has, to convince them to put these shows on. And so it shows what a huge fan he is of the show. And he writes in his foreword, again, about how important it was to him as a person in the formation of his comedic sensibilities and of our comedic sensibilities as a nation. So it was an honor to have Jimmy write the foreword, because it was already built in. We knew how much he loved the show.
Absolutely. Now, did you get a chance to chat with Jimmy during this process as well?
Not during this process, but I was actually at the first live in front of a studio audience broadcast that they did. So I spoke to him then and on other occasions. And, again, he's a Norman super fan. So it's so perfect.
Yes. What was that like? You said you were there. So was there any nervousness that they might not capture the essence of the original All in the Family? What was that feeling like? Was there a lot of angst and nerves? I mean, I think they pulled it off, but from being there during it, what was that feeling like? Was there nail biting going on? Or?
Well, I'm sure the feeling in the stands of the audience where I was different from the feeling down on the floor. Down on the
Yeah.
floor, I know that the actors were nervous and talked about that. They talked with me about their nerves, and it's funny because I heard about the actors who were doing the Jeffersons and how nervous they were to recreate those roles. And I think of an interview I read with Sherman Hemsley where he said almost the exact same kind of words about making his first entrance onto All in the Family, about how he stood behind that door and thought, I should run. I'm about to go on America's biggest show, and I could make a fool of myself. I should just. He had a panic moment where he nearly ran off the stage, and I know that there were actors in the live version who had that fleeting impulse too, like I should run, I should flee,
Yeah.
and they did a great job. So I know that there were nerves in the audience. It was one of the most electric events I've ever been. When you go to a normal sitcom taping, there are certainly fans who are happy to be there. After a
Yeah.
while, since the taping takes so long, people are just like, "Oh my God, let this end already." Because it was live and it was done in a half an hour, that we our that electricity never left us in the audience. And what I thought was so funny is the celebrities who wanted to be there, who were there in the audience because it meant so much to them. I spied CBS executives who were there, and this was an ABC event, because they were jealous
Mm.
that the CBS isn't the one who bought the show and aired it. So
Yeah.
you look around and you think, wow, this I'm really in a room that is meaning a lot to a lot of people right now, and you could feel it.
That's really, really cool. The book itself, take us, maybe you want to share anything from the book? You've got the book there, right?
I do indeed. And it came out on November 2nd. So it's available wherever you like getting books. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your local bookseller. And yeah, it's lushly illustrated, which I can't take credit for. That is all of the art that Norman had accumulated over the years, whether it was script pages or letters to him or letters from him, or there's just incredible treasures in there that we pulled out of his files from the last 50 years. And they're beautifully laid out. So I am just so pleased. As an author, I provided the words, and they were all words said by Norman or other people. I was compiling them. But then for me to get the PDF back and now get the physical book and see how beautifully it was laid, I'm so thrilled with it.
How long ago did you guys start this process? There's the germ of the idea of Norman saying, I really would like to have a book done on All in the Family, celebrating the series and all it has meant. From that point of the discussion of it to now this completion and that beautiful book in your hands, how long did that process take, Jim?
It was very quick. Right
Was it
now,
really?
we're at about a year and a half since I first heard of this project. Now, normally a book has a year lead time.
Yeah.
I can say that I was approached in January of 2020, and of course thought, oh, good, I'm going to sit with Norman Lear in person. Then, COVID happens. And so Norman and I actually were not put together to start working because of various lawyerly delays, which always happens, until Labor Day of 2020. And we wrote the book in a few months and then submitted it. And it takes that long to have it printed in China and shipped back here. And as we all know, the shipping was delayed, which caused us to delay too. So Norman and I really worked on this book for, I'd say, 3 or 4 months. And that is a very fast turnaround on a book. But it was because he
What?
had so much treasures that I
Yeah.
could dig through boxes, and he has such good relationships with the people who we worked with that I could
Yes.
easily get people on the phone to do interviews, whether Norman set it up or I just would call them and use Norman's name. And I didn't find a single person whom I called who worked on All in the Family who didn't just put down what they were doing and talk to me. Because when somebody hears, hey, do you want to be in this book that Norman Lear is putting out to celebrate All in the Family, like one of the greatest shows ever, and your involvement in it, everybody says yes.
Yes. So who would be maybe one or two that did participate in it that people can look forward to when they read the book?
Oh my gosh. Well, in addition to Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers, I'm thinking of guest stars like Hector Elizondo, James Cromwell, Liz Torres. Oh gosh, so many amazing guest stars. I don't want to do anybody injustice by forgetting them. Kay Callan, a bunch of writers, a bunch of producers and directors. Just it really you Bernadette Peters, Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
You'll recognize all of these names as greats from all of your other favorite shows as well. So many people got their start on All in the Family.
They really did. Absolutely. And of course, we know it spun off so many other shows, the Jeffersons and Maude and Good Times. Of course, the Jeffersons. Did you get a chance to chat, not necessarily in the book, or maybe uh, about the Jeffersons and some of the other spin-offs with Norman as well?
Yes, and we didn't focus on that for this book. We perhaps will do a Jeffersons book,
Yeah.
but of course, there are so many appearances of the Jeffersons characters on All in the Family that they're well represented that way. And we talk about spin-offs from All in the Family and how it ultimately, when you could talk of the spin-offs of the spin-offs, it begat 7 different shows altogether, including All in the Family, which is
Yes.
incredible. Um, so the Jeffersons were a huge part of All in the Family, and in those first few seasons before they had their spin-off. They provided a lot of the fodder for what Archie would say and gave it right back to him in great measure. So they were very important characters.
Absolutely. And of course, Good Times too, another classic. Absolutely. And
Yes.
Maud,
Yes.
the incredible Maud. Cool stuff, really. Very exciting, when you think about it, and
Yes.
and how all of these came out of All in the Family. And just, we wish Carol and Jean were still here, but you sort of through Norman's eyes, as well as those of the folks who have been a part of the series, telling this story in such a beautiful and poignant way, with again the forward with Jimmy Kimmel involved as well. What were you left with after this, speaking to all of these fabulous people and knowing the show as you do and loving it, and speaking with the creator, Norman? What are some things maybe that you took away that maybe enhanced your thought about the series, or changed some things about your thoughts about the series, having been first like the rest of us, a consumer of it, entertained by it, but now really almost being immersed in it through this book and these conversations?
Well, again, the appreciation for what it was. But that also leads me to the question that people ask Norman all the time, which is, with all the reboots happening, could there be All in the Family again? Not even necessarily the characters, like One Day at a Time was a very similar show, similarly structured, but with some changes. Could you do that with All in the Family? Norman's answer is, surprisingly, I don't see why not. And when I started to say why not, he said, "No, I know all what you're saying. I understand all your reasons." He's a step ahead of me. He understands that we're very sensitive, and all the words that you couldn't say on TV now. But I think his point is, why can't we unite people through comedy like we did if we're going to be smart about it? I think that in addition to the appreciation I have for the show, what I'm left with is a little bit of a sadness, because every time I write about a great show of old, I wish we could have either more of the same if the cast is still around and willing to do it. I'm greedy, like the Will and Grace reboot I loved.
Yeah.
But also, why can't we have something similar? We used to live in an era when there were 3 networks and everybody
Yeah.
criticized that TV was a vast wasteland. But somehow TV produced so many touchstones that not only do we have common jokes built around them that we use in certain situations, but they also really affected the course of our society in terms of what we think about certain issues. And All in the Family did that quite a bit. Will and Grace did that quite a bit. Joe Biden gave them credit for changing his mind and so many others about the LGBT community. So when I think about those days, yes, it's better now that we have more choices, that we have streaming, that there are so many more shows that can appeal to niche audiences and really make them feel seen. But I also wish that using that technology of streaming and all those additional choices, Hollywood would create shows with this kind of bedrock, like All in
Yeah.
the Family, with this kind of footing in real issues and real people and funny jokes. And we have moved a little bit away from that now, where the multi-camera comedy, which is the one that's the all-American art form pioneered by Olive Lucy, shot like a play and with audience response, has fallen out of favor, partly due to snobbishness and partly due to economics of the way streamers work. And I long for those days, and I hope that by celebrating some of these great shows of past days, like All in the Family, The Golden Girls, Will and Grace, there's a theme to what I want to write about, that
Yes.
people are inspired, not only write, but Hollywood is inspired to let people write the next generation that will bring us decades into the future, discussing the issues that are so vital to discuss and sort through now, because we certainly have tons of them. That has not changed.
Do you have some favorite episodes that stand out for you of All in the Family, Jim?
I'm sorry, I lost you for some there.
Do you have a couple of episodes that stand out for you from All in the Family that are personal favorites for you, Jim?
I do. I'm biased because being a gay man, there are 3 episodes with Beverly Sal, who is the transvestite is the word they
Oh
use,
yeah, right.
whom Archie rescues in the back of his cab. And
That's
of course,
right.
that's set up for perfect comedy because someone like Archie, having given mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to someone he considers a man, is great for comedy. And then there's the third part where Beverly is killed in a hate crime, which is one of the most beautiful showcases for Gene Stapleton that could ever have been written. And so those episodes really touch me. But there are so many episodes, a lot of them are built around trauma, I guess, that really touched me. Edith is nearly raped in her home.
Yeah.
Gloria is sexually assaulted at one point. Uh, you see tender moments from Archie at certain moments where he's having been a bigot all his life. He's now raising a Jewish stepdaughter, and
Yeah.
he buys her a Star of David and puts it in her out of love, kind of getting over all of the hang-ups he had about that. There are such great character moments. I mean, I talked about issues. It makes it sound like it's some kind of polemic or some kind of screed about issues. The show isn't that. What's so brilliant about it is it brought us through these 4 very human characters inhabited by these 4 actors who could break your heart one moment and make you laugh seconds later. And so many of the moments that I love, Sammy Davis Jr. kissing Archie on the cheek,
Yeah.
are brought to you out of these great characters that we've come to know over time, and we know why it's so funny or so poignant. And the best comedies do that. They can get their strongest reaction out of you, not necessarily out of a clever joke, although I never mind those, but out of the affection we've built for the characters over time. So I think every episode that I tend to pick is because I love Archie or I love Edith, or and I just love them having this moment.
And the live studio audience, the actual real, raw, authentic reactions, as opposed to the laugh tracks and things of that nature as well. And
Sometimes
sometimes some of the laughs that you hear in the background get you laughing because you're hearing wah 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 or some sort of a sound, or oh, you hear that a lot on Good Times. Oh,
well, the best
nobody's
shows, right, the best shows do that. Laugh track is an
Yes.
overused term that people assume that all these multi-camera comedies have laugh tracks. Very
Yeah,
few
they don't.
actually they call it sweetening. You're a machine. Very
Sweetening of
few
it,
actually have
right?
to resort to that because they have live
Right.
audiences who generally right. They have live audiences who generally do laugh. So
Right.
most comedies are pretty honest about when they earn their laughs, what you hear. But All in the Family certainly never needed to sweeten it. In fact, they
No.
had to kill laughs sometimes because the audience response would go on so long that the show would run long, or the response would be so thunderous, like in the example of Edith escaping her would-be rapist, that they thought that the bleachers were going to fall down because people were stomping
Yes.
and jumping so
Yeah.
much and out of joy.
Yeah. Yes.
So
There
it's
was
the
another
reaction.
thing
I love
too.
hearing the audience reaction on it.
Yeah. There was also, it was a time too when episodes of series, whether it was miniseries, sitcoms, dramas, whatever it is, during these years, those decades, were epic. They were water cooler talk the next day. Kids talked about these things in school or on the bus. They were iconic moments in our history when these things happened on all of these different shows. When somebody got married, like when Barbara Eden married Larry Hagman. Jeannie married, Major Nelson. It was like an epic stop time. When Lucy had the baby, 50 million people watched on CBS. Time stopped when these shows were on, and people really just felt so close to the characters. I think it's Maureen that mentioned, and I was going to bring it up too. It wasn't on All in the Family, but it was on Archie Bunker's Place. And even when I still see that episode when Edith passes away and how Carol O'Connor / Archie Bunker didn't want to deal with it until the very end when he found that slipper under the bed. How many times in our lives do you find a slipper under the bed or something? That's extraordinary writing. The other thing too is capturing feelings that so many people can relate to, and to write it in the way, and of course the brilliant acting to be able to pull it off too, but to write simple little things like the slipper under the bed that can really, rip your heart out as it does when you see it. Another beautiful, beautiful moment.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
And again, it's so beautiful because it did happen so late in the run. It was actually Archie Bunker's place that
right.
we had fallen in love with that family over the course of nearly a decade, and so we had built such strong feelings for them, and that's earned. That's when a good show takes its victory lap when it does something like that. They are cashing in on all of that goodwill and that love that they've earned from us and turning it into a storyline. And yeah, what a beautiful episode and moment that is, and a showcase for Carol O'Connor.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully, beautifully done. What are some other exciting things? And again, congratulations on this. This really, I know, has been a labor of love for you, for Norman Lear. I know you're going to be doing some events and things with Norman, going on the road with Norman Lear. That's another pinch me moment for you, I'm sure, Jim. What are some other things that are going to be coming up that you're excited about, that you're looking forward to?
Well, with COVID, we haven't been doing as much as we could possibly do in normal times. You have to be considerate of that. I think Norman is fearless and game for anything. And
Yeah,
I'm the one who's like, I don't want
you
to
sure?
ask a 99-year-old man to go out in public and be manhandled by everyone, but I'm the one who's
Right.
more conservative. In New York on November 29th, my husband Frank DeCaro and I will be signing both of our books. This book about All in the Family, and Frank will be signing his book about drag at the Rizzoli store in New York at 6 p.m. on November 29th. And then what's really fun is Norman and I did an interview just recently on camera for Live Talks LA. And that was just announced today. The tickets just went on sale today. It's a virtual talk that you can stream on December 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific. There's one ticket price for just the streaming, and there's another that includes a signed book by Norman. And by the way, he has not signed very many of these. And so that's something too. It's really, I mean, he's really thoughtful in an interview. I had such a great time sitting down with him, just even for that part. That was having already written the book, talking with him again about it in front of a camera.
I saw something recently with Norman. It was maybe just a couple of weeks ago, where he's on the back porch of his home in Vermont. And it was the home that he and his
Right.
wife, built, and it was sort of their country escape up in beautiful Vermont. Now it's been handed to the children, and he's on sort of this rocking chair, very casual t-shirt, the hat, and the glasses, and just talking about, I'm 99 years old. What more could I want than just being in this chair, like with the lemonade, family around, and looking out at this beautiful, majestic view of the Vermont countryside. I am blessed. I know it. I love my life, type of thing. Um, and to hear that from somebody, it's absolutely beautiful. It touches the essence of who he is. But to be in the rocking chair at
And he's that way
99,
all the time.
and bless him, we should all live so long and have such an experience as that, to where at 99 he can say, I've done it all, still want to do more. But the true blessings of everything are my life, my family, this beautiful view that's off my porch. It's such a full circle thing to hear, which I think is, sometimes a lot of people in their busy lives, during their chase for glitz and glamour and money and whatever and fame, they forget that in the end, being on the porch with the lemonade and the family home looking out at the countryside of Vermont is really the score. And he knows that, and probably knew it all the way, throughout his life.
Yes, he's like that constantly. And one of the things I took away from getting to meet Norman was kind of more learning about just how to be,
Yeah,
because I sweat the small
right.
stuff a lot. And I don't know that Norman doesn't. I don't know his day to day, and that he doesn't get annoyed like I am that my phone's not working right now and all that stuff. But he titled his memoir Even This I Get to Experience. And it just shows what a glass half full kind of guy he is, that when something new happens in the world, rather than like a lot of us do say, oh, another sign of the apocalypse where the world's going to hell. Look at
Yeah,
this, that he doesn't view us as all
he
broken like
doesn't
that.
do
He views
that.
it as another challenge or another thing he gets to witness in a long life of having seen a giant span of time at age 99. And when you talk with him and you ask him questions about a show, not a lot of times, but a number of times in our 8 or 9 hours, I would come down to trying to trick him into giving me the secret to long life without underlining it so much, because people ask him all the time. So I try to ease my way into it. And sometimes I'd say, what does that mean to you, or what has been the greatest moment, or what has been the effect of your show? Like trying to get him to philosophize a little. And his answer is often something like, if you say, where did that lead you to? And he says, it led me to getting to talk with you in this moment. And,
Yeah,
you could take that as flattery, you could take that as BS. But when you know him and you've spent time with him, you realize how genuine that is, that he's appreciative of this very moment he's living in. And that's so hard to do, but I think it explains why he will be 100 years old in July and still
yeah,
working and still has a production deal and still
yes.
active. It's amazing.
Uh, some of these wonderful comments. This was so lovely to remember these great shows. Where can we get your book? And thank you for the wonderful trip back in time. The book, Amazon, and places like that.
Oh, my pleasure. Yes, on Barnes and Noble. Say go to your independent bookstores if you prefer to do that. Sometimes the Amazon discount's not that great anyway.
Right. That's right. Norman is definitely an American treasure. I agree. And Kathleen was asking in New York City, are there other shows that you're thinking about writing about that you'd like to write about? You probably got a few out there that you're toying with, huh?
Yes. Yes, there are a
Yeah.
few on my list that I'm toying with. I'm actually right now working on The Love Boat, which is another joy. That's how I mentioned
Oh,
Gavin McLeod before. That's how I sat down with Gavin.
yes.
So when that is
Yeah.
done, and hopefully will not take me 10 years, I do have some other shows on my idea list. There's so many shows I adore. Sometimes, as I said, business reasons make it that publishers don't want to touch it, or it's a show that's been done to death. Like, as much as I would love the opportunity to sit with all six friends and grill them and go, that show's been written about so much. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But there are fantasy ones, and I never say never. As I said, I had said no in my mind to All in the Family, and then the opportunity came about in the right way.
Yeah.
So it happened.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I know that during this process, you almost feel like a self-imposed burden, right? To treat it with the dignity and respect and pay heed and honor to the tradition and knowing how people feel about a project. So when you're immersed in it, you're all in to make sure that that is maintained, right?
Exactly. I mean, when a publisher is going to cut down a certain number of trees to print your book, and those books are going to hopefully live on in someone's bookshelf, maybe
Absolutely right. Yes, I
streaming for a long
agree.
time, but now the book will exist for a long time, and you want that book to capture everything that was wonderful about the show, every element that went into the show that really put their all into it, and you want everyone to be celebrated. And that's the way I approach these shows. It's funny because
Yeah.
sometimes there are books that are dishy and gossipy about shows, and I don't mind
Yeah.
reading those as a reader. I'm not going to say I'm above that, but I also feel that I'm celebrating the things that are timeless about a show. And I've of my career have heard some moments about who was snippy at who on this day on this set and who would. But then again, I think in any of our workplaces, you can remember being snippy at somebody on a particular day because they were annoying you. It doesn't mean you hate them. And
Right.
so I kind of avoid stuff like that seems so fleeting, because I want to
Yeah.
celebrate the overall feeling and the overall accomplishment of these shows, because that's what we need for posterity.
Absolutely. Somebody that's here with us this evening who just wanted to say that he really enjoyed going down memory lane. Mr. George Burns is with us this evening. Well,
I love that. What a
Yeah.
good replica he is.
Isn't it? With a cigar and his hanky, the whole bit. This was, I mentioned on the show, this was my aunt's and one of my mother's sisters. And she collected dolls. And when he was 100, they came out, I guess, with a limited collection of, or edition of the George Burns. So she grabbed it right away and it came down to me, passed down to me. So we have him usually towards the end of the show. And he said, you did well, kiddo. He's proud of you and you knocked it out of the park, Jim.
Thank you,
Pretty
George.
realistic, huh? Could write a whole.
He
Maybe
is.
that's the next.
That's really great. If that goes missing one day, you'll know I found your address.
I was going to say, I hope you don't come and take
If that happens to go missing.
the I Dream of Jeannie bottle either.
Oh, now you're teasing me. I happen to have one of those, but
Yeah,
you're
great,
teasing me.
Yes, and we've got Gilligan
It
back
is amazing.
there from Dream of Denver, Bob's wife, who was a guest on the show, and it's all television. You and I,
Oh, wow.
we're like two TV kids, kids of television, and getting
Yes,
a chance
deliberately.
to live it.
I'm glad that you have me in a close-up shot. I'm glad you have me in a close-up shot because if you pulled back too far, you'd see all of the junk behind me, all of the memorabilia, and just stacked in places where I don't have anywhere to put it anymore. But I can't part with it.
No, I know.
Don't pull too far back. You can see the bookshelf. You can see the bookshelf there. That's not so bad.
Yeah. I used to collect TV guides. A lot of people did that.
Yes. Yes.
That was a big thing. That was a really.
I have
big
a friend
thing.
who. I have a friend who just sent me his own collection of TV guides. He was moving and said, "I want these to go to a good home." So I got a nice collection of them.
The Merlin in Canada says, thank you, Jim and Jim. Absolutely. Jen Barry in Allentown, Pennsylvania says, such a fun show tonight. Love. And Mona Greer in Louisiana, thank you so much for your time tonight. Enjoyed the show. Come back and see us. Jen says, Jim, can we have Jim back? Love him. Absolutely. I knew you guys would enjoy this. Maureen says, Jim, this has been such an incredible journey back in time when TV shows were actually don't miss. Thank you so much for taking us back. I agree 100%. And
this is my fault.
Kathleen in New York City, thanks for being here with us, Jim. This was great. And good stuff. Good stuff. Very interesting that that Merlin says that Dick Van Dyke would be a good read. You won't believe this, Merlin, but look what I have that was a birthday gift from one of my friends in New York. It's Dick Van Dyke's book, Merlin. Have you read this one? You probably have read this already, Jim, huh?
I have it on my stack. I have not read it yet.
It's fantastic. There's somebody else.
Yes, I know. And there is a Dick Van Dyke show book too.
Yes. Now, I was this close to actually... I was this close to having a chance to actually interview him for a PBS special, but he got called away because Disney needed him for the celebration of his 90th birthday. He's still somebody on my list that I've just always admired from start to finish. His character, his integrity, his humor, his wit, his way. Have you had an opportunity to chat with him or be in the same room with him at any time?
I've met him a few times. One of the fun things about living in LA, and I've only been here for 8 years, is that you run into some of these idols that you've always wanted to meet. And, sometimes it's at the supermarket. It's just going to be the funniest place. In this case, Buddy Hackett's widow gave an annual party every September. And one year I got to go. And actually, speaking of Florence Henderson, she was gossiping with, I think, Rosemarie off in a corner about somebody, I was trying to overhear, couldn't hear what they were talking about. And Connie Stevens was there, and we got to sit with Dick Van Dyke for quite a while. It was as he was about to turn 90. It was a few months before his 90th birthday. He turned 90 that December. Birthday. Now he's 95 or 96. I don't remember.
Yes.
But I mean, that's when, again, when you're in the presence of royalty, you just sit there like, I can't believe I'm at a party and sitting outside in this backyard with Dick Van Dyke hearing his stories.
Yeah. And Florence and Rosemarie and There was a
Yeah.
before I think Carl Reiner had passed. There was this wonderful, I think it was CBS Sunday Morning, where they had Carl Reiner, Mel Brooks, Dick Van Dyke, and Norman Lear all together because they were celebrating the fact that in their 90s they were still there, and now it's Dick Van Dyke and Norman Lear and Mel Brooks that are left, which is extraordinary, isn't it?
It is. I mean, they're all treasures and they're all still active. Mel is going to be working on a series version of History of the World, and Mel's not, I think, 94. It's just,
Yes.
it's amazing.
Yeah. Maureen in Arizona had a crush on Dick Van Dyke since she was a kid. He is so wonderful. That is
Oh, she has
funny.
good taste, and what talent when you see him in Poppins and all the things he can do. She has good
Yeah.
taste.
Jim, this was really awesome. We really appreciate all the time and taking everybody down memory lane. And we, wish you much success, you and Norman. And Norman or anybody wants to stop by the Jim Master Show live, feel free to spread the word about our show. Be an honor and a pleasure. And
Of
this
course.
book again is absolutely a must read. And congratulations! I know it's something near and dear to your heart, and we wish you nothing but continued success
Very
with
much
it.
so.
And hopefully we will be chatting soon, maybe breaking bread in person. I would love that. It would be a pleasure. And I hope
Me too.
this episode met whatever expectations you had, and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have, certainly with you, Jim, tonight.
I had a wonderful time. Thank you to you, Jim, and to everybody, to all of the people out there in what is it called again?
All the
Lovett Hall? No,
lovities,
not Lovett.
yes. Lovety Hall. Lovety Hall, yeah.
The Lovety Hall. Lovety Hall. How could I
You know
forget
who
the
you know
the
who
new
really
word? I love
loves
it.
it? Levity. And we did a poll like a year ago when it just slipped out of my mouth. Love and levity put together, light, love, levity, and slipped out. I said to the audience, the viewers, because I'm very interactive host, and I said, well, what should we do? Grammatically, levity wouldn't be Love. And as a writer, it technically would not be the English teacher would slap your wrists if she saw Loveity. But we said, you know what? I'll leave it up to you guys. Do you want us to keep the E in so the word love is intact? We're in a pandemic. There's all this craziness going on. Should we keep it? So we've kept the E in, which technically isn't grammatically the way to go, but
You know what,
it
Jim?
has
If it puts your mind at ease, I always had that problem with the word lovable, that I thought there shouldn't be an E in it. But I think I've looked it up, and if I'm not mistaken, you can spell it either way, with an E or not an E. So if they can spell lovable with an E, why can't you spell levity with an E?
I like that. I like that. We got a thumbs up from the extraordinary entertainment writer. Where writing is his name in the game. Yeah, so that's pretty much what has happened there, and it's really it's been very, very cool. So that's how the Lovity ended up happening, and it was really fantastic. Jen Barry says, "Great, Jim. Have a good, magical, fun, happy holidays to you as well, Oh boy, well, I'll have to have you come
Thank
back to
you.
talk about
To you too,
James
all too.
Garner. They're all talking about James Garner now.
Ah,
Real Rockford
oh,
Files.
wow. And now you're speaking my language when you're talking about one of the most handsome men to ever be on television. Yes, of course.
This is what they're saying here. Yeah. Well, you be well, and hello to Frank, and happy Thanksgiving to you guys. And hopefully we'll see each other at some point soon. This really was a pleasure, Jim.
I would love that. And for people in the New York area, come see us November 29th if you're in Manhattan. The Rizzoli store on 26th and Broadway, 6 p.m.
Fantastic, fantastic. And again, there is that fabulous book, Amazon, and you can get it at the bookstores and all kinds of cool places. You take care and be well, my friend, okay? And thanks for being with us. And go stretch those legs, as I say to all the guests, get the circulation going.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. It was great to be here.
Take care, Jim. Cheers. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Jim Colucci right here on the Jim Masters Show live. Yes, it's double Jim, double Lovity here for all of you. What a great conversation, right? Really a pleasure to have him here on the show. He's a kid of television like me, and he just is living his bliss having an opportunity to be so immersed in television. And of course, as we mentioned, having the opportunity to collaborate with the one and only Norman Lear, responsible for all of these iconic shows. There's All in the Family, there's The Jeffersons, More of the Jeffersons, Good Times, and Maude, of course. One Day at a Time. And you may remember we've had Glenn Scarpelli on our show a couple of times. He loves Lovity, actually. He says, I love that whole Lovity thing, Jim. Glenn was terrific. And that was another Norman Lear production. Of course, Gloria, Sally Struthers. A couple of you mentioned that as well. And of course, the iconic All in the Family that started it all. There again is the book, All in the Family, the show that changed television. Norman Lear, Jim Colucci, and of course, the foreword by another Norman Lear fan, a fan of sitcoms and comedy, Jimmy Kimmel as well. So that's quite a bonus to have all involved. You got a Norman and two Jims involved in that book, and a Jim hosting this show. It's like I said to Jim Colucci, it's a Jim thing, especially with the Florence. How ironic with the Florence Henderson stories, huh? Really, really something special. As was All in the Family, and all of these iconic specials and shows and series. You guys are the best. Great show, Jims, plural. I agree. It was really, really fantastic. Thank you, Kathleen in New York City. Jen Berry says, Jim, I love guest Jim. Bring him on back to Lovity Hall. We shall. We'll always keep the porch light on. Thank you for the stamp of approval, Jim. That Lovity with the E. It is. Yeah, he gave us the stamp of approval, which is really cool. Jen says, I love the Jeffersons. I love Good Times, the best. Yeah. And of course, God will get you for that, Walter. All the, even the expressions too, like stifle and all the rest are hilarious when you think about it. And how, those words and those phrases have just been a part of Americana for so long. Or I can even hear B. Arthur saying to Walter, dummy. It's just like, it's all in fun. It's all in jest, but just the delivery, the actors and actresses, the casting on all these shows and all these shows just of these time periods, iconic. We had Jerry Mathers on the other night from Leave It to Beaver, another incredible, person. Marion Ross from Happy Days was here, and Donnie Most, Kathy Garver from Family Affair. And Sid Williams, all the classics, really, really fantastic. Linda Pearl was here recently, really special. David Osmond, nephew of Donnie Marie, were here. Thank you, Jim. Enjoyed the memories. Absolutely. The Pointer Sisters were here recently too. Check them out. Gang, you guys are the best. We really, really appreciate all of this. And we thank again Jim Colucci. And again, don't forget, you can check out all the other material out there, Will and Grace and Golden Girls and more that he has out there for you as well. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Pacific, that is. Don't forget to help spread the Lovity, share the Lovity, tell everybody you know about the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Talk Show series here on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, a channel that is really dedicated to entertaining, informing, educating, and inspiring. And, in the time that we launched the show, we've done about 550 episodes live 7 days a week. 2 shows today, 2 shows yesterday, 2 shows Monday. Incredible. Don't forget to smile, we always say. Don't forget to share the Lovity. Very important. And don't forget to find your Zen place. Mine is with loving family and friends, music, tennis, writing, food, gardening, all of that. But the ocean, that's the Atlantic Ocean. That's actually the South Shore of Long Island, New York. And swimming, surfing, boogie boarding, sailing in it, you've got to drag me out of the ocean. And my work in television, radio, stage, and film over the years also is a Zen place for me. So find your Zen place, gang. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, we would love that. It's Jim Masters TV. Click the notification bell. We would love that as well. Boom, look what happens. Subscribed. And of course, give us a thumbs up like on this episode and leave a comment for us on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. We'll check in with a couple more lovely comments, and then we will say sayonara. We never say goodbye. We just say see you later, or we say moi loop, which in African means walk well. We say Auf Wiedersehen. And Mona in Louisiana says, love the show tonight. Thanks, Jim. Hope you and these comments go by so fast here. Hope you and the Lovelies have a great night. Thank you very much. And again, This is for the folks that are watching live. I realize many of you will be watching this later on in the archives, tonight, tomorrow, 6 months from now, 2 years from now. Feel free to share this link on your social media with all your friends and folks you think will enjoy this episode and all the episodes. Thank you, Mona. You love Jerry Mathers. Yeah, he was just on recently, and I got a chance to meet him recently too in person. Great guy. Thank you, Jim. Enjoyed the memories. Sherry Larson in Kansas. Thank you, Sherry and Linda Odell. Good night, Mr. Levity. Good night, Levities. This was great. Thank you very much. Kathleen, have a great night. Good night, all. Hugs, you as well. Kathleen in New York City. Appreciate that. Hugs from Linda. Merlin says, have a great rest of your evening, or a good rest of your evening. I'm actually going to finish the dinner. I didn't get a chance to eat yet. Good night to Sherry Larson as well. A couple more. We're going to wrap. Maureen says, this has been a really fun evening. Thank you, Jim, once again for bringing us such a wonderful way to decompress after a crazy day. Absolutely. And you're getting ready to retire there in Arizona. Your daughter was just married last week, and now you're going to be retiring at the end of this year after many years in nursing. That is such a beautiful thing, Maureen. Joan Sandos says, thank you, JMS, for this wonderful idea you had. Love being here with host, guest, and Lovities. We love you as well. And hugs back at you as well. Gang, thanks for being with us. You're the very best. We thank Jim Colucci. We thank all of you. And tell your friends about our series. Again, bringing back the lost art of conversation with our entertainment lifestyle talk show series in style right here on our YouTube channel. Take care. Be well. We'll see you again on the next episode right here tomorrow, back 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, live. If you miss anything, you can see it all in the archives. Take care. We love you all. Be well. Cheers.